This is the Pick Six Podcast, and this is Sunday Night Super Friends.
Yeah, boy.
That's Will
Super
Breech.
Friends reunion.
That's John Breech. I'm Ryan Wilson, and this is Sunday Night Super Friends Week 1 NFL Recap 2023 edition. I like that, boys.
I enjoyed it. I like that, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, how you like that?
I would say that it's weird. Like we've been doing these shows for so long. That like sometimes you forget, like when like Wilson popped onto a meeting like last week and was like, How are you doing, Brinson? I was like, yeah, I guess I don't talk to you every day. But we talked for work purposes every day for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then now we're doing today's episode. Before today, I had not talked to Brinson since March. I had been ducking.
Well, good news, Breech. The NFL is back, and here's the plan. We're going to hit on our top 10 takeaways from week 1, the biggest storylines, the best players, the top plays, suspect coaching decisions, and, of course, the overreactions, some might argue, fuel this podcast. All right, so there's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. First up, Justin Herbert. Breech, he was the league's highest paid player for the month of August. We'll get to the guy that succeeded him in a little bit later here, a little tease there. But I want to start with Tua, who currently ranks 28th among all quarterbacks in average annual salary. He's behind Trey Lance and Jacoby Brissett, for crying out loud. And he went off on Herb's Chargers to the tune of 28, 45 for 466 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Dolphins rolled, quotation marks, they started to roll over that Chargers defense, 36-34. Brinson, you have to pay Tua more than $55 million a year on average than Joe Burrow just landed, right?
No. You do not. Well, one, this is the trickiest contract situation. First of all, I think that Sunday's game between the Dolphins and the Chargers was perfectly emblematic of what Miami is in terms of a football team and what you can why it was so difficult to decide what to do with the Dolphins this year. One of Breech's hot takes was the Dolphins finishing last place in the division because even in that entire game, you sort of wondered, is Tua going to make it through this? Every time there was a sack or every time he was on the ground or every time he had to, he was running for a first down and he slid. It was don't bang your head. And then at the same time, you have him stepping up in the pocket and delivering dimes down the field to Tyreek Hill or hitting Tyreek Hill for that touchdown pass late in the game. Tua did so much good stuff that if you told me he was going to be healthy for the whole season and that he wouldn't have offensive line issues and that they would be able to play like this offensively, I would definitely be interested in the Dolphins winning the division and maybe doing even more than that. But because of that, the Dolphins is a hard thing to figure out. And they handle the Chargers, or they didn't handle the Chargers. They stormed back and beat the Chargers. 4th most passing yards of all time in week 1 by a quarterback at 466 behind
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. And Sammy Ball, maybe?
Norm Van Brocklin.
That's it. Norm Van Brocklin, Tom Brady, and Dan Marino. So 2 Dolphins quarterbacks. He's not even the number 1 Dolphins week 1 passing yard guy, Breech. But I think it was a crazy game. It really helped salvage kind of a really slow and boring early portion of the slate. But man, if Tua plays 17 games, the Dolphins are going to be a threat to make some noise in the postseason.
Hey, Breech, let me go in quickly. 7 lead changes in this game, the 4th week 1 game to ever have 7+ lead changes. 60 combined first downs, a little bit more than the Steelers and the Bengals were able to pull off. 70 combined points, 969 combined total yards. So I'll ask you again, why are we not paying Tua Tagovailoa?
Oh, we're paying him. We are paying him a lot of money. I'm just
okay.
If you're the Dolphins, you have that hesitancy of, hey, look, he's been dealing with injuries. Sure, he started the season with 466 yards, but is he going to be thrown for 466 yards in week 12? Is he going to be on the field in week 12? So as far as paying him, I don't think you're going to overreact off one game. But the thing I loved about this win by the Dolphins is it was kind of emblematic of the argument that everyone has about Tua and Justin Herbert, where the Chargers – yeah, Brinson, that's kind of you were alluding to, but this is...
I literally said this is emblematic of the Dolphins, and then you just took that and...
No, I'm talking about of both teams, of how you feel about both quarterbacks. Not you in particular, but it kind of you follow...
Get a thesaurus, pal. Get a thesaurus or a dictionary, all right?
Well, I liked your words so much, I decided to use it.
All right, that's fair. That's nice of you. Okay.
Brinson, you rarely use big words. I was just trying to give you some love for that.
That's preposterous.
This is the
he needs a hug, Breech. Go ahead.
What do people say when Justin Herbert got his big contract? It was like, well, can he win a big game? Can he lead a game-winning drive? He's the ultimate social media quarterback, quote unquote. And so he had a chance to beat Tua here. He had the ball in his hands on the final possession, and he couldn't do it. And yes, the Dolphins went all in and crushed him a couple times, but those are passes you have to get off because you know the situation. And then you have Tua, and the question was, can he survive the game? And as Brinson said, you were holding your breath every time he went down or got touched or hit. That he didn't get sacked, though, because the Dolphins' offensive line did such a good job. I don't even think I heard Joey Bosa's name called a single time in this game. That really tells you how well the Dolphins' offensive line played. So I was,
you were so like you just so like Bosa had been ringing in your ears all throughout the 1 p.m. slate that you didn't recognize.
It didn't register.
Bosa, yeah.
My brain muted out all mentions of any Bosa brother. Or Nick Bosa had enough production in the early slate to make up for the whole family. But I will say, as someone who I had the Dolphins Chargers both going 9-8 this year, and Tua looked a lot better than I thought he was going to. If you were going to ask me, I mean, the Dolphins look like a lock for the playoffs. That's how good they looked, and the Chargers looked like the Chargers. So I'm on the bandwagon, guys. I'm going to go buy a pet dolphin and jump on the Dolphins bandwagon.
I can't believe you didn't have a Dolphin already. By the way, Breech, you'll appreciate this. My son just turned 12, but over the summer when he was 11, I showed him Ace Ventura. That is his second favorite.
I was about to quote Ace Ventura.
That's his second favorite movie after Napoleon Dynamite. I told him that you would be proud of him. So
he has great taste in movies.
He does have great taste.
Ace Ventura is an all-time, probably the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie theater.
So worth noting, Kellen Moore looks like he's a good hire. Brandon Staley, the defense still not so hot. So that's something, and to Breech's point, Chargers are going to charge it up, and that's certainly disappointing. Breech, you talked about how that game ended. I'll just mention it quickly here. So the Chargers go up by 2 points.
Dolphins go up by 2 points.
Right, sorry, the Dolphins go up by 2 points.
Jason Saunders missed the extra point.
So they go up by 2.
Yep.
Herbert gets the ball first plat. I think he completes the pass, and second 20 because of intentional grounding. That's a problem. And then Christian Wilkins gets a sack, makes it 3rd and 30. And after that, it's a wrap. 4th and 13 sacked again.
And let me just add to this real quick is that, so the Dolphins are up 36-34. Herbert and the Chargers get the ball at the 25-yard line with a minute 45 left.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
At that point, and they still have, I think, 2 timeouts. All they need.
You feel like the Chargers are definitely getting a field goal, a look at a field goal to win the game.
Well, right. They only need 35 yards just to be in field goal range. 35 yards with 2 timeouts at a minute 45, and you win the game.
Justin Herbert and this is like you feel very, very good that the Chargers are going to have a kick to win the game. You don't know what's going to happen with that kick, but you feel good they're going to have a chance at it.
So also worth noting, Tyreek Hill, 15 targets, 11 receptions, 215 yards, had a 47-yard catch as his longest reception, 2 touchdowns.
He obliterates the Chargers, man.
Yeah, well, he obliterates a lot of people. It's pretty hard to tackle, it turns out. Most career games with 175-plus receiving yards. And I'm looking at the graphic here. Billy put up most receiving yards in the season opener. Tyreek had 215. That's somehow 3rd on the list after Frank Clark. I went to high school with Frank Clark in 62, and then our guy Anquan Bolden. Tyreek has had.
I think it was Anquan Bolden's rookie season too.
Yeah,
2003 was his rookie season after running a 4.7 during the pre-draft process, which is sort of bonkers to get your head around. But Tyreek's had most career games with 175-plus receiving yards. He's done it 9 times behind Lance Aldworth, who incidentally played for the Chargers, and then ahead of Isaac Bruce and AB Antonio Brown. So,
well, and real quick, because you just gave Kellen Moore some props, and I'm going to take a little bit of the props away from him, because one thing the Chargers did do well, so this part is a props to Kellen Moore, is that they figured out they could run the ball on the Dolphins, and they said run to the tune of 234 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, so that's great. You figured out their weakness. You're taking advantage of it. Well, guess what? Final drive, you only need 35 yards to get in field goal range. You have a minute and 45 and 2 timeouts. You're not in a pass-only offensive situation. You can run your offense, but nope. What do the Chargers do? They call pass. Herbert gets sacked twice on that final drive. He only got sacked 3 times the entire game. 2 of them came on that final drive because the Chargers refused to run the ball, even though they had 2 timeouts. They could have switched things up, thrown a few curveballs.
Eckler averaged 7.3 yards per carry.
Yes.
I have a breaching analogy. have a breaching analogy for what you just said in terms of describing Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore running the ball so well to the tune of 234 yards, as you mentioned. It tied for the most rushing yards in a loss in team history. I mean, that's how Chargers are. But Kellen Moore running the ball as much as he did in the first 3 quarters, that's Kenny Pickett in the preseason. Kellen Moore in that last drive, that's Kenny Pickett in week 1. Your true colors came through, Kellen. Although I still have your back, even though Breech doesn't. Go ahead.
It was just weird because it was like, we thought the Chargers the Chargers traditionally are just under Brandon Staley are not very good at stopping the run. And everyone sort of thought that Raheem Mostert would go nuts, would run the ball all over the place. And it just turned out they just needed to throw and get the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands. It was a Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle show. And I mean, obviously Tyreek had way more yards and two more touchdowns than Waddle, but it's like Tyreek Hill was unstoppable in that game. And
let me get this straight though. So you both agree that Tua should get paid. Both your concerns are injury related. Is that right?
I don't think you can pay somebody who's thought about retiring $55 million a year.
Okay. Well, I mean, what if he says, I'm not taking $48 million a year? What are you doing?
Franchise tag him.
Well, then you're going to end up, I don't know what the math is on that. Breech probably can do it off the top of his head like Rain Man, but I'm sure it's going to be close to, because the top 8's out right now. Patrick Mahomes is number 8 in terms of average annual value.
Right. It's a ridiculous contract. I think I'd be fine doing something with Tua. And look, this is 1 week. Let's get through the season. Right.
Okay. So yeah.
Well, it does feel like you've kind of reached, I don't want to say the ceiling of the quarterback salary, because whenever Mahomes redoes his deal, it's going to go higher. But it's going to be hard for Tua to say, hey, look, I want 56 or 57 million a year when you don't have any playoff wins, you have trouble staying healthy. And then it turns into a Kyler Murray situation where you regret it 3 weeks after you sign the contract.
I think a Tua contract would need to have very intricate and specialized clauses in it about injuries.
No, the entire contract is a per game active roster bonus.
I mean,
a couple things. Our Jonathan Jones reported today that the Cardinals are happy with Kyler. They're just saying that to look at number 1 overall pick. And number 2, I don't think Tua could have done anything more today to be more impressive than what he did.
No.
So a couple things, and I'll go through this. We haven't done our draft. We'll do our draft like in the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll do it at the quarter poll, our Super Bowl draft, which we did a few years ago. But I'm going to go through the bowl predictions here. Breech and I both took one on the chin. Breech had Miami finishing last in the AFC East, off to a slow start for Breech. I think I had Wilson had. Thank God I didn't put this on here, but I had the Chargers winning the division. So bad and bad. Brinson, you didn't have anything related to this, but.
I would say that to this game, no.
All right. Onward and upward, fellas. Next up.
It's really downward because that was the best
game. Way down. Going downtown like Julie Brown. 2. Sweet Jesus alive. All right, Breech, I'll let you get the start, and then I'll switch it up on you when we talk about your team. What was your favorite moment in the 49ers shellacking the dog dookie, if you can shellac dog dookie, off of the Steelers?
Well, it would take 3 hours for me to go through all of my favorite moments from the game. But honestly, and it's going to sound crazy, and you might not even believe me, but it is going to be how fast the Steelers' first offensive drive ended. They went 3 and out. All I heard for the past 3 weeks was how they were unstoppable in the preseason, and Kenny Pickett was going to light everything up. And Matt Canada had turned a corner with Kenny Pickett. And what they do, they went straight out, fell flat on their face with a 3 and out, an interception on their second possession, another 3 and out. And by the time they didn't do a 3 and out, which I don't think happened until the end of the second quarter, 5 minutes left in the set. There we go.
No,
they have 1 yard.
This is such an aggressive approach, knowing what's lingering around the corner for you.
No, that's okay. He's getting his money's worth. Yeah, I think they had
at least 5 straight.
They had at least 5 straight 3 and outs. I didn't check the actual details because I was so disgusted. But here, let's do this because we get accused of talking about the crappy team first. Brinson, give us the highlights of why Brock Purdy deserves. What did the kids say? His flowers.
I don't know if the kids are still saying that, but sure, that works.
That's what my 11-year-old always says. No one says
Brock
that.
Purdy's the bomb.com. How cool is he? Look, I thought Purdy, one, there's a bit of, oh boy. And I don't want to get involved in podcast treason or anything, but Patrick Peterson, our colleague, I think, technically did say on the All Things Covered podcast that Brock Purdy sort of tipped his pass, it tipped his plays, or the San Francisco offense tipped his plays, and he would have an interception. And our good friend Bryant McFadden was like, "Yeah, that's what I love to hear." And Brock Purdy threw some shade at Pat P in the post game, mainly because Pat P got absolutely roasted by Brandon Ayuk, who caught 8 targets for 8 catches, 129 yards and 2 touchdowns, and threw an incredible block to spring Christian McCaffrey for a 65-yard touchdown. I think for Purdy, it's not that dissimilar from Tua, right? Where you have you have Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, right? Same sort of system that they come from. Mike McDaniel was of course the run game coordinator. Was he the offensive coordinator or was he just run game?
He was the OC when they drafted Alex Smith and not drafted Aaron Rodgers in 05.
What?
Mike McCarthy?
Mike McDaniel.
Oh, Mike McDaniel. Yeah, he's a run game coordinator. Sorry.
Yeah, but he was never the OC. He was just run game coordinator, then jumped to be. Yeah. Anyway, so you got the system with, it's like I wrote about this in sort of the Sunday Pile, but it's like, where does he get all these wonderful toys? And you don't have to be this elite quarterback. You have to be an elite decision maker. Good Lord. That is a man who fell on his face. You have to be an elite decision maker who can distribute the ball well. And Brock Purdy did that a lot last year. And he just did it again against the Steelers on Sunday. 19 to 29, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like not a perfect day, but man, he looked really sharp. He was near
perfect. I watched the game and it was clinical.
Yeah, I had a lot of this game on. He looked really sharp early on. He knew who to get the ball to, where to get the ball, when to get the ball out. And like if he does this, then the 49ers should probably be the Super Bowl favorites in the entire NFL because
the overreaction segment is later, but go ahead.
Well, they were the 3rd favorite like coming into the season, so it's not that crazy. But like coming out of the NFC, if you have their roster, I mean, it's just them and the Eagles and the Cowboys. We'll get to them later, but it's like those 3 teams, and maybe the Lions too, I guess. But like, just so much better than everybody else in the NFC. It's hard to imagine if Purdy plays like this, the 49ers are going to be freaking awesome this year.
So Breech, the final score 30-7. It wasn't even that close. The 49ers, as you pointed out, whipped up on them early and often. Largest week 1 victory since 2016 for San Francisco. The first time they won in Pittsburgh since 1996. And it extends the current active longest winning streak, 11 straight wins for them. Brinson mentioned McCaffrey ripped off 65-yarder, finished with 152 rushing yards. Purdy was clinical. Ayuk was clinical. I was laughing during the game because remember when Ayuk was in Shanahan's doghouse?
Yeah, you know whose fault that was? Trey Sermon. Remember he and Trey Sermon like went hanging out or something like that, and like that's what got him in Shanahan's doghouse.
Fred Warner played like a man possessed.
Yes.
Drake Jackson, their 2nd-round pick, 2nd-year player, had 3 sacks.
Yep.
TJ Watt had 3 sacks, but I mean, let's be real, it doesn't matter. The only concern was please don't let Brock Purdy get hurt. So, Breech, I don't know how much of this you saw. You were probably dealing with your own issues in Cleveland, but I'll say this: Brock Purdy was the best quarterback not only on that field but maybe in the state.
Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's Brinson already hit the nail on the head with him. I mean, that was, look, we all had the questions of can he throw the ball more than 10 yards downfield coming off the elbow injury? It was, hey, look, he played a few snaps in the preseason. We saw Kenny Pickett play a few snaps in the preseason and play well. Doesn't mean anything. You have to do it in a game. And I think when people were trying to make their Super Bowl picks, the hesitancy with the 49ers was, do I trust Brock Purdy? And the answer right now is an unequivocal yes. I mean, the guy looks like he can run Kyle Shanahan's offense to perfection. And this is like Kyle Shanahan's fantasy. This is exactly what he wants in a quarterback. This is everything he's ever wanted in a quarterback. Found him with the last pick of the draft, so it makes it even crazier. And as long as Purdy stays healthy, man, and Brinson hit it. I mean, it's the 49ers, it's the Cowboys, it's the Eagles, and those feel like the 3 top dogs, and you maybe throw the Lions in there, but those feel like the 3 top dogs in the NFC.
Does it? The Trey Lance trade, after you see Brock Purdy play like this in week 1, the Trey Lance trade feels a little bit, and like, again, Brock Purdy only played, he was a 3rd-string quarterback last year. He only played because of injury last year. So that's why I thought it was so weird to give up your 3rd-string quarterback. But like, you know, you see Brock Purdy play like this, it makes more sense where you're like, all right, we're not even messing with this anymore. We screwed up on Trey Lance, but we nailed this by accident with Brock Purdy. We're going to go to him.
They have made a ton of like crazy/bad personnel decisions, and Kyle Shanahan outcoaches those decisions. And that's why you can live with it. Like I gave you guys a hard time, especially you, Brinson, that I wasn't sure the Christian McCaffrey trade was going to be worth it. Yep. That turned out to be worth it. Trey Lance, not so much. They drafted Tyrion.
Fun fact, the 49ers have not lost a regular season game with Christian McCaffrey. They are now 11-0, I believe. Undefeated when Christian McCaffrey, you say Brock Purdy is like the perfect, like Christian McCaffrey is the perfect player for Kyle Shanahan.
He's like everything Kyle Shanahan would want. I mean, they have 3 unicorns in George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey. And then they have Ayuk, who looks like he might be in for a big-time breakout year, who they drafted the first round. Like, I mean, we all talk about the haul that they could have gotten for the, like, what do they get? Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, or Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And it's like, yeah, that is a ton of stuff. It's like, I mean, what would they do with Jalen Waddle if they had him on this offense?
That's just too much. I mentioned earlier that the Steelers started with 5 straight 3-and-outs. And then you look through the possession chart, and then their 6th drive, they had 12 plays, 76 yards that ended in a touchdown. Oh, yeah, that was a 2-minute offense that didn't require the offensive coordinator to call any plays. Weird. All right, before we get out of here on this game, I want to mention quickly there are a slew of injuries.
Well, what's your panic level on the Steelers here? What scale 1 to 10?
I actually took great solace in that. As I watched that game, I didn't care. I was like, whatever. I got to focus on other stuff. It is what it is. If you're not going to move on from the offensive coordinator, this is what it's sort of you resign to the fate that if you're driving straight for a cliff and you can't get your foot off the accelerator, you're going to go over the cliff.
Well, so, it's like the that the old tweet that's like it's like sowing, it's like reaping. Oh no!
Yeah.
It's like well. If it isn't the consequences of my own actions showing up,
or as the kids say, you mess around and you
F around and find out.
But Deontay Johnson left with a hamstring. Pat Freiermuth left with he had a chest injury. Cam Hayward left with a groin injury. In the previous game, I forgot to mention Mike Williams left with a head injury for the Chargers.
So the Steelers lost by 23 and have no one left on the roster.
I believe Pat Peterson left with he's doubtful for next week with a broken soul.
No comment. I'm not commenting on coworkers. Fun fact before we take a quick break here: Brock Purdy's brother plays, and I know this because I was watching Prime Time, Coach Prime in Colorado playing Nebraska. He's the 3rd-string quarterback, incidentally, for Nebraska.
Yeah.
His name, Chuba Purdy.
Chuba Purdy, yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's take a quick break.
Is he named after Chuba Hubbard?
He is named after Chuba Hubbard. We come back. We're going to talk about not Breech's terrible team, but Aaron Rodgers 2.0. Right for this.
Sports bettors, it is time to level up. What's up, everyone? I'm Mackenzie Brooks, host of the Sportsline Model Show, a new Sportsline YouTube show powered by the Projections and Insights team. We are giving you a new edge to sports betting by showing you behind the scenes of the Sportsline simulation and using it to answer your questions. Over the years, this team has cracked odds makers' codes and successfully replicated their lines. From there, we find out where books have moved lines artificially to target the public narrative, and we show you how to react to it. So join us every Tuesday for Q&A, value picks, fantasy analysis, and game breakdowns from the brains behind the Sportsline simulation. Come bring your questions and let's cash with the model.
All right. Packers put a old whooping on the Bears, like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre were playing at the same time. Same old. 9th straight win versus the Bears for Green Bay. 11th straight loss for the Bears since last season. 11th straight game for Chicago with 25-plus points allowed. This ain't your Dick Buckus Bears.
What was the Greg Gabriel tweet last year? He's like, all the experts said the Bears would finish in last place. He's like, well, what do they think now? The Bears are just going to lose their last 10 games of the season.
Oh, here's the thing.
The last 10.
I was watching this game, and I made a note early on, like, oh, okay. And I think my original sort of note for this game was, are the Packers happier with Jordan Love or are the Bears happier with Justin Fields? So, Breech, I'll put that question to you.
One of my bold predictions was Jordan Love will have a better season than Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about the bold prediction show.
That's right.
So
give me my flowers.
So, Breech, quickly. Jordan Love, 15 of 27, 245, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Justin Fields, 24 of 37, 216. A touchdown interception. He had at least one fumble late that I recall. So I'll put the question to you again, and you can just talk about how good Jordan Love is. Should Packers fans feel good about Jordan Love compared to Aaron Rodgers? And how should we feel about Justin Fields?
If you are a Packers fan, you are thrilled. Look, I think the Bears are a bad football team. I picked them to finish in last place. I think I have them winning 5 games. So I'm not going to come out and say, I'm going to give Jordan Love an MVP vote because he diced up the Bears. But, and this is a big but, look, you have to be thrilled to see this because, look, Jordan Love could have come out and fall flat on his face, and that didn't happen. I mean, there were a couple inaccurate throws, but overall, I thought he played a pretty good game. It's a good stepping stone. This is what you want to see out of your new full-time starter, and you got to be thinking, all right, now if he plays like this and gets slightly better each week, we can compete in this division because there's no great team in this division. So, yeah, I think if you are the Packers, you are thrilled with Jordan Love and Justin Fields. Man, I just don't know. The Bears just aren't a good team. I don't know what you do. I don't know what Justin Fields is going to do. He got sacked 4 times. He's running for his life. He's always trying to make something crazy happen, and there's not enough good players on that roster to make crazy things
there should
happen.
be. I mean, they went out and spent all that money. I thought that
they wasted all that money.
They were the worst team in football last year by not a wide margin because the Texans were bad too, but like they went and got Nate Davis, good signing. They drafted Darnell Wright, great draft pick.
DJ Moore.
But they spent a bunch on and they trade for DJ Moore, but they spent a bunch on like off-ball linebackers, and that's important for Matt Eberflus.
Well, their defense, as I pointed out a moment ago, their defense was straight up dog dookie though, so I get that on some level.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, the Bears' win total was 7.5 coming into the season. That was outrageous that it got bumped up that much.
Someone was drunk when they made that number. Here, first, before we go into the Bears, let's keep talking about the Packers because I want to point out a few things. Number one, Christian Watson was out with a hamstring. Number one receiver wasn't there. Romeo Doubs played with a hamstring. He wasn't 100%. Their leading receiver was Aaron Jones with 2 catches in terms of yardage. Luke Musgrave, the rookie tight end, had 3 catches. Dobbs had 4. He was a leader, but only had 26 receiving yards, but did have 2 touchdowns. So I think to Breech's point, that's even more impressive for Jordan Love to do it to guys not named Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, whomever. Although
without Christian Watson, yeah.
Yep. So what do you think about what were your takeaways from Jordan?
I mean, I think you sort of see what we saw in the preseason where 15 to 27, like you see the overall stats, the completion percentage is not ideal, but
I felt like he was more accurate than watching him though.
Yeah, I did too. And I think that you're going to have some highs and you're going to have some lows with Jordan Love like that. And that's just sort of the player he is. Like he is not like a consistent high floor, low ceiling guy. He is an incredible ceiling. And if they harness it and Matt LaFleur gets him to become consistent.
Sorry to interrupt you, but why do you think he has a low floor based on what?
Well, not a low floor. I'm just saying you'll see him. And you would see him at Utah State, and then you would see him in the preseason and regular season games. You see him make great throws and then miss throws where you're like, how did he miss that? And so that's what I mean. His athletic upside is huge, but he also has inconsistencies to his game. Now, I think that frankly, pretty similar to Aaron Rodgers in the way that he came into the Packers and how he had the time to learn sitting behind a future Hall of Famer and how now he's in there and he's confident in the offense and they have a good enough defense, it looks like, and a good enough run game, it looks like, and enough, stuff around him, it looks like that they could win some games and be a playoff team.
I'll say this, the Utah State things, you're not wrong. His last year there, his junior year, was hard to watch, partly because he was the only show in town. He was dragging that team up and down the field. I think, to your point, Brinson, that him sitting has been instrumental in his success. It feels like Breech's brother, Matt LaFleur, seems to really like him, seems to buy in, doesn't have to deal with the drama that's related to Aaron Rodgers, and we'll see how that plays out in New York. But I think the floor, fingers crossed,
the LaFleur.
I think LaFleur is pretty high in France.
No, I'm not saying that he has a low floor. I'm saying that he'll just miss some throws that you're kind of surprised that he missed.
He missed one in the preseason to Musgrave. He missed a couple of I think Musgrave actually struggled with running routes, but Musgrave's going to be really good. Had a big catch that he fell down to the 4-yard line. They ended up scoring on that, I believe, late in the game. But I liked a lot of what I saw, and everyone was injured. Now, listen, if Aaron Jones can't play for a few weeks because of the hamstring, we don't know, but that's something to keep in mind.
There was a report that it was just precautionary. Jay Glazer said it was on the Fox postgame show. It was just precautionary.
Okay.
He doesn't think it's a thing at all. Let me ask you this, Wilson.
Yeah.
Would you, right now, knowing what we've seen from the Packers in week 1, but not knowing, because we're recording this on Sunday night, what we'll see from the Jets in week 1, who would you say is more likely to make the playoffs, the Packers or the Jets?
Breech, do you remember my bold prediction?
That Jordan Love finishes with better stats than Aaron Rodgers. Is that correct?
Your answer. That's your answer. Okay. I was impressed with the Packers. Now, I'm on the Lions bandwagon. Jared Goff's the second best quarterback in the division. Maybe the first after the way Jalen Hurts played today. We'll talk about that in a second. But Breech, I want to point this out to you.
The Eagles are not in the division?
NFC. They're in the NFC.
Oh, the conference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Breech.
You said division. I was like, who's the number 1? Jordan Love.
Brinson,
right,
Rusty. It's our first week for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Iron out the kinks.
By the way, did you find that happening today? I was like, I watched a full day of professional football, for work, and It's been a while.
I don't want
you're certainly like you are kind of rusty.
I don't want
my eating schedule was way off. I didn't even get my Chick-fil-A sandwich, man. It's depressing.
I made a Wegmans pizza at like 3:30. Like what am I doing?
I thought that's why Breech was grumpy when we were texting him to hurry up that he hadn't had his Chick-fil-A sandwich yet.
I forgot to buy it.
Breech, Brinson touched on Justin Fields and his struggles. Here's something that will not make you happy. Worst quarterback record through 26 career starts since 1970. Steve DeBerg is first at 3-23, so that's good for Justin Fields. Justin Fields is second, tied with Blaine Gabbert, 5-21. So, what's the plan? Like, is it Luke Getsy? Is it Matt Eberflus? Is it Justin Fields? Like, how do you fix this?
I think you got to blow it up and start over. You have to get a new head coach.
Whoa!
It's week 1.
Yeah.
Jeez,
that's what I'm saying.
By the way, Brinson,
but Justin Fields was 20-1 to win the MVP when the season started.
Yeah, he didn't bet that.
Idiot! It was an idiot bet, but like it was the most bet player. The Bears were like the most bet Super Bowl team. The hype of the Bears. The problem is they picked 9th overall when they were picking 1st overall, but they moved back in a trade, and people forgot that this roster and this team were terrible last year. They're not good.
And here's the thing: is he had Matt Nagy? He had Matt Nagy in 2021. I don't know how you feel about Matt Nagy, but Fields went 2-8 there. And look, it's your rookie year, big learning curve. Last year he went 3-12, and as Brinson said, not a great roster. This team wasn't great. Why was there an expectation and all this hype around them going into this season? Like Fields is an electrifying player. He shows flashes. When he has these crazy touchdown runs,
game.
Right. But until you've got to have the passing game to complement
that. Pull up your pants, take off the bra, and be a man.
We didn't clear.
You've got to have the passing game to complement that, which he has not exhibited thus far.
All right, Breech, let me ask you this as a follow-up, because this is sort of the math I was doing in my head. I was watching the Steelers get steamrolled. If Kyle Shanahan's calling plays for the Steelers, are they better?
In the 49ers Steelers game?
Yeah.
I mean, they probably still lose. 49ers are so talented, but it's probably like 27-24.
Matt Canada could screw up the Niners.
Yeah. So let me just continue the thought. So what if Kyle Shanahan's coaching Justin Fields? Are they playing the way they're playing? And my point is this. Maybe it's not all Justin Fields. Maybe he's 48% responsible, but I feel like some of it, at some point, the coaching has to get the most out of the player. And have they gotten the most out of Justin Fields? I guess what I'm asking.
No, if you gave Justin Fields to Kyle Shanahan, the Bears, I don't know if they win this game, but they probably win this game.
Okay. What do you think, Prince?
Well, I think part of the problem, too, is that, again, the hype. Dude, he had 2,242 passing yards in 15 starts last year. He averaged, what is that?
No, we know that he struggled, and he ran the ball and took a bunch of hits and fumbled the ball a bunch. But I'm just saying, do you think, has he reached his potential in terms of how he's been?
No. He's he's still young. The problem is like you're running through coaches. To Breech, I think look, I don't know if Matt.
To Brinson's point, real quick, you were going to say to my point. I'm going to Brinson's point. When you're saying pointing out the 2,000 yards last year in 15 games, he's never had a 300-yard passing game. So
that's crazy. How do you people get so hyped up because of his athleticism in the run game, but he's only running like that because the Bears' offensive line is trash. He doesn't have any good weapons, and they can't protect him, and they're always losing. So like at the end of the year, they basically like four or 5 games into the season, they're basically like, F it. We're just going to play to his strengths and let him run like crazy.
But in his defense, remember last year was Matt Eberflus's first year. Is that right? Yeah. So Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, seemed like he didn't know what to do with Justin in the first half of the season. Then things got a little better. Then he got hurt because he kept running the ball so much. Does that mean they don't trust him to throw the ball?
I don't think they trusted their offensive line last year.
Well, I don't know better.
It's gotten better. Yeah. I just think that people expected the Bears to be like a 9 or 10 win team. The Bears are probably going to be a 5. Their total was 7.5.
Well, okay. You're deep in the gambling world. I don't know which world you live in. Breech, it's probably a scary one, but in the world you're living in, does anyone think the Bears are good?
No,
my world.
Dude,
either.
People were hyping the Bears.
The Bears are ranked behind Yogi Bear, the 3 little bears, and Yogi's friend.
5-second answer. Brinson, who do you feel better about? Not who do you feel better about. What did you learn more from? The Jordan Love and the Packers or the Bears?
Jordan Love and the Packers, because the Bears are who I thought that they were, to quote the late, great Denny Green.
Didn't let him off the hook, though. What do you think, Breech?
Yeah, I probably learned more about the Packers.
Okay. All right. I think I agree with that. I think the Bears, to, again, quote Brinson quoting Denny Green, are exactly who we thought they were. All right. Let's go. to the mistake by the lake. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, 24-3. What?
Oh, what a big jam. Wallace took it in his hands and said,
all right. Reach.
That was a lot of Dickie V there.
I know, usually, yeah.
Reach, go take a walk because I got to read a lot of sad stats. Browns first week 1 win at home since 2004. Jeff Garcia was the team starting quarterback in that game. The Browns' largest week 1 win since they defeated the Steelers 51-0. Jesus, in 1989. First time winning.
To add to that fact, Ryan, largest week 1 win since 1989. 1989 is also the last time the Cleveland Browns won a division title.
Oh boy, that's a great start. And next
Who
week
won
they
the
play
Super Bowl in 1989?
The San Francisco 49ers.
Who'd they beat?
Russell Wilson's Broncos.
Nice. Gotcha.
Hey, by the way, on this, our research team usually does a great job with the packet they put together, but I see they left out a digit on Joe Burrow's passing yards.
What does it say?
It just says 82. Like
that can't be right.
There
Is that
has
right?
to be like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 next to that. What was his actual number? It can't be 82.
But I'm checking the official NFL stats page, and it says 14 of 31 for 82 yards.
82 yards.
All right. Have your fun. Let me check real quick.
On my main group chat, it was like somebody was like, damn, rough start for the Bengals. And then somebody else goes, geez, what the hell happened? Burrow had 31 attempts and 82 passing yards. T. Higgins targeted 8 times, zero receptions.
That wasn't good.
Like 2.6 yards per attempt. That's, I believe, that the late, great Chris Wessling coined that the Gabbert zone.
All right.
Let's check our week 1 picks real quick. Breech picked the Browns to win. Okay, that's all.
All right, here let's start with the Browns before we pile on Breech in the Bengals. I will say this: we just talked about the Bears spending all that money on both sides of the ball, and it looks like getting zero return on their investment. The Browns went out and got better on defense, and Joe Burrow can attest to that as much. So, Brinson, I'll ask you first. And I slept on the Browns, and I thought it was going to be terrible because of Deshaun Watson.
I got dragged by Browns fans. So
Deshaun Watson wasn't great today, but he was certainly miles better than Joe Burrow. But what's your takeaway? Maybe the biggest takeaway from the Browns is the defense.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the defense. And Denzel Ward came out afterwards and said that they had the best cornerback group in the entire NFL. I don't know if that's entirely true. But because I think the Jets are pretty good. But I mean, maybe he's onto something. Breech, you watched this game closely, obviously. The weather was pretty bad, right?
Yeah, it was raining sideways, wasn't it, Breech?
Yeah, it was raining sideways, and it did look like Burrow had a little bit of trouble gripping the ball, which was interesting, but I don't think that would have changed anything, even if it would have been a drizzle. I still don't think the Bengals win this game.
Well, no, I mean, he had the fewest yards per attempt by any quarterback in the season opener since Vince Ferragamo in 1984.
Love Vince, play for the Rams. So, Breech, let me ask you this: How did Deshaun Watson look to you? Because I didn't watch that game super closely. I was too busy crying about the Steelers.
See, here's the thing: is that I'm a Browns fan. Obviously, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm thinking, hey, I'm thrilled with this 24-3 win. They're celebrating because they haven't won a home opener since 2004, as Wilson already mentioned. But Deshaun Watson didn't look that great, which is overshadowed by the fact that Joe Burrow played possibly the worst week 1 game of any quarterback ever.
Including Kenny Pickett.
Including Kenny Pickett. So it just so people won't be talking about the fact that Deshaun Watson did not look good in this game. He had one of the ugliest interceptions. This is something Joe Burrow didn't do. Watson scrambled out, had a guy wide open or kind of in the middle of 3 Bengals players. And instead of getting it anywhere near his guy, he threw it straight to the Bengals player. And so
Dax Hill interception, that one?
That was the Dax Hill interception. That was the only interception.
It was 10-3 Cleveland at that point, midway through the third quarter. So that would have been an opportunity for the Bengals to take advantage of it. But had it been normal circumstances, nice weather, whatever, that's an interception that come back to haunt you if you're Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
And I don't want to not give the Browns the credit that they deserve. Like I think I'll be honest. Like I didn't pay a ton of attention to this game in the 1 o'clock slate because it was like, I mean, I think like Scott Hansen kept referencing it on Red Zone. He's like, this game is something. I mean, there was the Watson. There were no points for the entire first quarter. The Browns get a field goal early in the second quarter, and then Watson was like at the right before halftime runs in for a touchdown to make it 10-0 at halftime. So like, I mean, it was just it was just, and then the weather, it looked like, I think, kept getting worse and worse. And it was like the Bengals just weren't doing anything. I mean, so what's your panic level, Breech, on a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, it is -5. Here, look.
It's like last year's week 1.
Well, exactly. And here's why I picked against the Bengals this week. I only pick against Bengals, I feel like 2 or 3 times a year. But it was, we've literally
6 first downs.
We've literally seen this exact same script in Joe Burrow's career. The first year, we've talked about it, how he missed the offseason didn't exist because of COVID. So he didn't get a lot of time to build chemistry with your receivers. You go out, offense doesn't look great in week 1. Second year, he's rehabbing the ACL. You don't get a lot of preseason time to build chemistry with the receivers. You go out, you don't look great in week 1. Last year, the appendix, you don't get a lot of time with the receivers to build chemistry, and you play the Steelers, and you don't look great in week 1. So, I mean, that's what was going to happen this year. You can't just expect Joe Burrow to go out there and have this automatic chemistry after 3 practices and not being out on the field for a month. So I didn't think there was any way they were going to win this game. I thought the Browns roster is stacked. I've said that. I predicted them to go to the playoffs this year. But I will say, as far as Cleveland goes, I didn't really learn anything about them because Deshaun Watson played average football. And to me, he's still the wild card, the X factor.
Yes.
I still don't know if he's going to be good this year. And that's the one thing I needed to learn about the Browns that I didn't learn, but their defense looked awesome. Nick Chubb looked good, but I still don't know how I would rate Deshaun Watson.
The Elijah Moore trade looked pretty good. He had a couple plays. He looked a little dynamic in space, but again, only had 3 catches for 43 yards, 7 targets, which again goes back to Deshaun and the weather. Andy Dalton.
The weather, you got to, the weather, you're going to deal with that in Cleveland, but that's a factor when you start looking at this game.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Just like it was in Philadelphia too. They ran there for a little bit. Andy Dalton is the only quarterback with more career losses in Cleveland since '99 than Joe Burrow.
Burrow's 1-5 against the Browns.
Really,
the one weird team he can't figure out. They just have his number. It is what it is. You move on and hope you don't see him in the playoffs.
Yeah, can you imagine? You lose them in the playoffs.
I cannot imagine. Ohio would blow up. It would not.
Baker Mayfield beat the Steelers and Big Ben's last year. That was awesome. All right. So sounds like Breech is unconcerned. Brinson, did you learn anything about do you feel better about the Browns than you did 24 hours ago?
Yeah, but mostly it's because of Browns fans in my mentions on X or Twitter or whatever. Who were like, remember when you said that the Bengals would sweep the Browns? I think, I think Breech is pretty spot on there with the Deshaun Watson thing. Like, if he's better, they're going to be good, really good. And if he's not, then you just have a lot of question marks.
All right, let's go to Las Vegas. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, you know when we'll be going to Las Vegas?
I don't know.
For the Super Bowl. For the Super Bowl when it's on CBS.
Okay.
You're banned until 2026. Has something changed?
Me?
I thought you're banned from Vegas.
No, if anybody's banned from Vegas, it's you, bro.
That's true.
Anyway, Jimmy Garoppolo makes his debut for the Raiders. Russ Wilson makes his debut in the Sean Payton offense. Looks a lot like the Nathaniel Hackett offense with Russ Wilson running it. He was a little better, but they only managed 16 points. The Raiders won 7 straight games versus the Broncos. What planet are we living on? This stat absolutely blew my mind. The Broncos are 12-31 versus the AFC West since 2016. They lost 15 of their last 17 from 2012 to 2015 when Peyton Manning was the quarterback in Denver. The Broncos were 21-3 against the AFC West. Sean Payton's team's fewest total yards in a season opener. So maybe it's Russ. Now, he looked a little better, Brinson, but yeah. What is your concern? Well, you're on a concern level meter talk. So what's your concern level meter talk with Russ?
7
out of 10 or 7 out of 6.
7 out of 4.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's like, but it's only a 7 because it's like I didn't think he looked that great in the preseason. Like I've said repeatedly that I will give Sean Payton, blindly give Sean Payton a pass and believe in Sean Payton and his ability to get the most out of his quarterback. But I think you'd be crazy not to be a little worried about Russ, although he definitely looked better. It's just like this Raiders defense shouldn't be. He looked better than he did last year. But
okay, well, that's great.
But we're now approaching 3 straight years where Russ may have not played well.
But wait a second. Let me back up to your last statement. He looked better than he did last year. This ain't moral victory, the MFL, moral victory league. So how much better does he need to play for this to be not concerned about the piece of the contract that they're paying out the nose?
I mean, a lot better.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure.
I thought Jimmy Garoppolo was the better quarterback.
Oh yeah, easily. He actually, I mean, you would say this without hesitation because of your disdain for the Carr family, but you would say he's better than Derek Carr.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think that he's. I mean, I thought all along he was an upgrade because his familiarity with Josh McDaniels. Jacoby Myers played really well for the Raiders. Devontae Adams was fine. Jacoby Myers took a nasty, dirty hit late in that game. Neither team could really run the ball effectively, and the weapons just weren't there for Russ in that passing offense. Like the 34 passing attempts, 177 yards, no bueno.
No.
I'm in Russell Wilson's defense. Okay, the Broncos only punted twice in this game. Once in each half. They only had the ball 3 times in the first half. That's not the offense's fault. And they scored 2 touchdowns on those 3 drives. If you got 2 touchdowns on 3 possessions, you're not going to sit there and bash that team's quarterback. And they would have gotten 2 scores on 3 drives in the second half, where again they only had 3 possessions because this game had the longest possessions of all time.
Possessions is pretty wild.
And 4 scores on those 6 possessions, you would say, hey, that quarterback probably had an okay game, even though his numbers didn't necessarily give that, and he did struggle a little bit with his decision making. But for me, and Brinson, you were saying you would go with Sean Payton. I feel like Sean Payton, you could argue he kind of cost them the game here with 2 decisions. Number 1, starting a game with onside kick, which the Raiders recovered, had a short field, immediately drove 44 yards and scored a touchdown. So now you're down 7-0 with your new team before your offense even touches the ball because you decide to give the other team a short field. And number 2, you guys remember
it's so arrogant to start your first game with the Broncos in the Dolphins. You're like, I don't know if you guys remember I had an onside kick in the Super Bowl and to start the second half. He's like, watch this. And I love Sean Payton.
And then another special teams thing is that, look, Sean Payton cleaned house, got rid of his kicker, said, hey, Brandon McManus, we don't need you. He brings in his own guy, Will Lutz. What does Will Lutz do in his first game? He misses an extra point in a 1-point loss, and he misses a field goal. Field goal was a long one, so it's a little more acceptable.
But you're in Vegas. Were they?
They're in Vegas.
No, it was in
Denver. They were Denver.
It was in Denver, Mile High Air. Very
you should be making, yeah.
So, yeah, you have a kicker missing 2 kicks and 1-point loss, and it was a kicker that you handpicked. So I think that the Broncos got let down by their special teams, and Sean Payton had a direct hand in both parts of the special teams to let them down.
I will say this, and Brinson said it's arrogant to onside kick. I mean, it may be revealing about your quarterback situation. You're like, yeah, let's give him a short field and maybe that helps. Like I'm just putting that out there. I think
it was like just sending a message. Like, we're going to be so aggressive. Like,
number 2, Breech is the ardent defender of Russ Wilson. All right, Breech, rank the quarterbacks in the AFC West right now.
Patrick Mahomes.
Just get to 3 and 4.
Just get to 3, yeah.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, if you could speed up through these 2.
Okay, I would probably put Jimmy Garoppolo at 3.
Okay, that's where I'm going with that. All right, so Brinson, I'll come back to you. I mean, the Raiders last year, we were having conversations by week 8 about Josh McDaniels getting crap canned, and he kept his job clearly, and the defense looked better. I'll give him credit for that. Now, maybe it's a function of playing the Broncos, but I think to your point, Garoppolo is more consistent. Jacoby Myers was balling out. He had more targets than Devontae Adams, which is sort of crazy. Josh Jacobs hasn't gotten going yet, but presumably he will. How do you feel about this team in terms of the playoff hunt, I guess?
Well, I think that this game could end up being a little bit like trying to think with the other game that I sort of thought this about, but it's like I think that this game could be one where we're like in a couple of weeks, like, oh, okay, that was just a weird week 1 game. Let's settle down. The Raiders have settled down. The Broncos have sort of picked up the pace a bit. That's just my opinion. But this is what I always say. Like early in the season, if you're picking games, you have to learn how to change your priors, right? If you're high on the Broncos and low on the Raiders, and the Raiders beat the Broncos, you have to decide, okay, was I wrong on both of these teams? Was this a fluke game? How much do I need to adjust these? RJ White does his power rankings and all that, but it's like I think that this may look like a little bit of a abnormality in a couple of weeks is my initial gut feeling, but it's certainly on my radar as a possible, like, okay, maybe with Garoppolo here, if he's healthy, the Raiders have something cooking, and maybe we were just wrong. Maybe anybody who was high on the Broncos at all was just dead wrong.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Breech, any parting words from this game?
Did we talk about how handsome Jimmy Garoppolo looked in silver and black?
He looks great.
He actually looked pretty good in silver and black. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Breech is going to tell us his favorite guacamole recipe.
Get breaking news,
big news coming out of the NFL today.
highlights, and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in Ford championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
That was my fault, Breech. I was looking at your cats and cookies blog, not the football. So we'll talk later about guacamole. But
Are you getting robbed of a guacamole recipe? That's
some great recipes over at my Cats and Cookies blog.
What's your favorite ingredient to mix in guacamole?
His is definitely arsenic. I don't want to go down this road.
I feel like red onion, some tomatoes.
Breech, do you eat guacamole?
Yeah, I love guacamole. Okay. Who doesn't eat guacamole?
I know you're a weird cat. You eat day old Chick-fil-A, so I have questions. All right, what we're really going to talk about are the rookie quarterbacks who all started. The three of them, all first-round picks: Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, picks 1 and 2, pick 4, Anthony Richardson. And we've been trying to hit on these injuries as we go through this. Brinson mentioned that Jacoby Myers got banged up in that game that we just spoke about. Anthony Richardson hobbled off the field late after taking a huge hit on his shoulder. I think it was reported as not just a shoulder, but also a bone bruise on his knee day-to-day, according to Shane Steichen. So hopefully he's available for week 2. But I think the lesson there is you can't take hits no matter how big you are. But Brinson, I'll start with you because I'm sure you had your eyeballs on the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young had 2 interceptions, both very similar to Breech's guy, Jesse Bates.
I actually watched I watched the Jaguars in Indy and the Panthers Falcons games pretty closely.
All right, let's start with Bryson because I thought he actually looked pretty good in general, and we saw some shaky quarterback play from quote unquote veterans, and I didn't get that from Bryce.
Well, Bryce, the 2 picks he threw that Jesse Bates, former Bengal turned Falcon in free agency, who looks like a great signing, were basically the same play. And it was like, that's one where it's like, you've got to learn. You really want your quarterback to learn from that first mistake and not make the exact same mistake. And Bates sort of, no pun intended, he baited him into kind of to making that throw, and Bates came down and picked it off twice. But I thought in general that Bryce Young looked good, and I would be enthused as a Panthers fan, even though the final result 24-10, obviously not what you want. Hayden Hurst, by the way, took the only touchdown for the Panthers in the game, thrown to Hayden Hurst from Bryce Young, and threw the football, his first career touchdown pass, and threw it in the stands in Atlanta. Mercifully, whoever caught it, whether it's a Panthers fan or a Falcons fan, threw it back so that way Bryce Young could have his football. But yeah, I thought the protection was generally better than I sort of expected it to be for Carolina.
Struggled in the preseason, but they
really got
better over the course of the preseason.
And they ran the ball fairly effectively. Miles Sanders had 4 yards per carry.
How'd Chuba Purdy do?
6.7 yards per carry.
Nice Chuba.
Had a longer 21, 9 carry, 60 yards. Love Chuba Hubbard.
I call him Chuba Purdy.
I know, but it was one where the Panthers had the ball early on and ran the ball really well, and then got down to the red zone and it sort of got bottled up a little bit. He was without, of course, DJ Chark.
Yep.
And was there somebody else missing? I thought Jonathan Mingo looked okay. Hayden Hurst, nice little addition. Adam Thielen, was sort of banged up and didn't do a ton. But I thought in general that the Panthers offense, I think you're optimistic about what it can become. I also think the Falcons defense might be better than people think.
Yeah, I will see. I mean, it's one of those things. Are you playing the Broncos or are you actually playing a good football team? Breech, I'm going to throw some fun facts at you. You may have cheated if you read the same thing I did. The last 14 number one overall picks, like Bryce Young.
I knew the stat from last week, actually.
The last 14 number one overall picks at quarterback are 0-13-1. Do you know the last first overall pick to win in his debut?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Mr. Mittens.
David Carr, 2002.
With the Houston Texans.
Who took over 70 sacks that season.
Well, it's crazy that he won his first game. I don't think they won again.
They beat the Steelers that season. I remember being very angry about that. But he had one of those Joe Burrow stat lines and somehow won. Here's a interesting development, and Frank Reich just reconfirming that that owner in Indianapolis, who probably shouldn't be named, just maybe has a screw loose in terms of just running Frank Reich off. Here are the starting quarterbacks under Frank Reich going back to 2018. Did you guys see this list?
No, but I mean,
you can name it. 2018, who was the starter?
Andrew Luck.
2019.
Jacoby Brissett.
2020.
Phillip Rivers.
21.
Carson Wentz.
22.
Matt Ryan.
And then
Bryce Young.
Here we are, Bryce Young.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of turnover, as they say in the business.
I mean, the Wentz thing is like basically why Frank Reich got fired. I thought that the offense wasn't. I don't know. I thought it was good, not great. They had some chances to score. Like they had some chances to score points. They got aggressive on fourth down in some spots. But I thought I would be pleased with Bryce Young's performance, even if he had some bad mistakes and like overall, the Panthers offense didn't do a ton.
I felt good about all three of these quarterbacks. Breech, I don't know how closely you watched them. CJ Stroud's numbers in Baltimore were 28 of 44, 242 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Anthony Richardson did a lot of heavy lifting, both literally in terms of dragging guys down the field, and he threw the ball relatively well. I believe he had an interception. I don't have his.
Yeah, he had an interception. Yeah, it was a bad one.
And then your buddy Gardner Minshew had to come in at the end there when he got banged up.
I thought Richardson looked exactly like what I thought he looked like a better version of sort of what we thought we'd get from him. Again, where there's a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Like when he, and he didn't throw the ball down. Like Michael Pittman did a little work on that touchdown pass. It was a shorter pass. Pittman ran at the sideline, but it was a good pass delivered on time and in the spot you wanted it. He had some stuff that was pretty off. He had that interception, which was a really bad one. And, he ran the ball well, but it's also like you see him get banged up in his first game as a pro. And you remember, man, it's you run the ball that much as a quarterback and it's dangerous out there.
Yeah. Breech, Anthony Richardson is the youngest player with a pass touchdown and rush touchdown in a game since 1942. Did you have any thoughts on any of these quarterbacks? Did you get to see them?
I would say I thought CJ Stroud wasn't horrible. I thought he played against the toughest defense of these three quarterbacks. And I mean, you were talking about the level of competition and that we don't know. 4 weeks from now, we might be saying, and the Ravens are giving up 40 points per game. Then the Texans look horrible for scoring 9. But I do think the Ravens have a very good defense, and Stroud acquitted himself well. Sure, they only got 9 points, but I don't think we expected a ton from any of these rookies. He got sacked 5 times. That was the other thing, is that like it seems like the decision making is a little bit slower with these guys, and so you see them taking sacks. Richardson got sacked 4 times, as I said. Stroud got sacked 5 times. I think Bryce Young took a couple sacks. And so that's one of those things. If
you draft a quarterback in the top 5, generally speaking, you probably don't have a great roster around him, particularly on the offensive line.
Right. But I mean, the Panthers traded up, so you'd think they would be in a little bit better situation than your normal team that has the first overall pick. So, yeah, I mean, I thought these guys all played kind of how we thought they would. None of them had one of those, Cam Newton 2011 throw for 400 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns.
RG3 or Andrew Luck, like when
right. It's exactly what you expect from a rookie quarterback. None of them were horrible where you thought, oh my God, that team wasted their pick. And so, yeah, I wasn't wowed, and I wasn't thinking that these guys are going to be out of the league in 2 years. So
Anthony Richardson probably had the best chance to win their game. Trevor Lawrence balled out.
They got the craziest touchdown on defense.
Right.
So,
Quinn Buckner scored on the
DeForest Buckner.
Yeah. Who's Quinn Buckner?
So Trevor Lawrence
basketball at Duke.
Yeah. That's Quinn Snyder.
No, Quinn Buckner did.
Okay.
Call games.
So Trevor Lawrence throws the ball. He gets hit as he's throwing it by DeForest Buckner, and the ball comes out, and it looks like it's an incomplete pass, but there's no whistle blow. And Tank Bigsby picks it up and is holding it, and he's just standing there, and so he's not down. He's recovered a fumble, and a Colts player, but he doesn't realize it. Colts player comes up behind him, slaps the ball. Buckner, who's sacked, technically strip sacked Trevor Lawrence, picks the ball up and turns and runs like a 300-pound dude sprinting to the end zone, dives in, and it's a touchdown. And it was like, you're watching, you're like, holy, what? Like, how did that happen? And ultimately, like, to me, the story is like with the Jaguars here too. They had like Richardson probably played about as well as he could have played in his first start, given all the things that he had to, he was dealing with in terms of this roster. No Jonathan Taylor. They get this crazy touchdown. They miss some 4th downs. And like, I still think that like the fact that the Jaguars still put up 31 and won this game, and you see they're at 17 with 2:30 left in the third. Like, I think that says a lot about Jacksonville here too. Yeah.
I mean, it's a division game. I get it.
Division road game. I mean,
yeah, no, I get all that. By the way, Breech, CJ Stroud's first pass. Guess who caught it?
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud.
The first to do that since
Brett Favre.
1992.
As it happened, Des Ridder did the same thing today. I don't think it was his first
he
pass,
did.
but he caught a ball that he threw to himself. Very selfish, if you ask me. All 3 rookie quarterbacks lost. Brinson, what was your stat? All new coaches,
all first-year head coaches were the first-year head coaches were 0-5 today.
0-5. So if I had to rank these quarterbacks, I think Bryce is number 1. I think it's close. Bryce is number 1. CJ's gonna be number 2, and Anthony's gonna be number 3. But I feel good about all 3 of them. It's not a situation where you're like watching Kenny Pickett or Joe Burrow and wanting to trade both of them, or signing Joe Burrow to a $4 trillion deal and regretting it immediately. But
I would actually move Richardson ahead of Stroud, I think.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, again, I think the upside is crazy for Anthony. He only had 12 career starts in college. He's one of the youngest players in the NFL. They rolled him out there, and I think Shane Steichen is exactly who you want. Here's the thing. If Shane Steichen were coaching Justin Fields, might be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
If Luke Getsy was coaching Anthony Richardson, we're definitely having a different conversation.
Sure.
All right, so let's talk quickly about the Cowboys Giants. We started this podcast at literally the third quarter where it was 40-0. It ended 40-0.
What an ass kicking.
So I doubted the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy calling plays. He ran off Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore actually did okay in his first start. Breech didn't like it as much as I did in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Breech, were you were a believer last year, I believe. Are you still a believer in the Cowboys?
I was not a believer really last year. This year I'm on the bandwagon.
Oh.
This year I have the Dallas Cowboys going to the Super Bowl. They're my pick out of the NFC, and this is everything I could have ever wanted to see out of Dallas. You see, dominate special teams, dominate. Their defense might be better than it was last year, and their defense was awesome last year.
I have their defense in fantasy. They scored 41 fantasy points. I mean,
I have their defense in 3 out of my 4 leagues. So yeah, they all in on the Cowboys. So yeah, I mean that was. But you know the thing is. And this is kind of going back to the Browns situation that, yes, they won 40-0, but we didn't really learn anything about Dak Prescott. He threw
his numbers
or Mike McCarthy calling plays. Like there wasn't really anything to call.
Right. By the time the offense had their first touchdown drive, the Cowboys were already up 19-0. That touchdown put them up 26-0. So the offense, right, Brinson. So McCarthy didn't get tested as far as what's going to happen when it's the fourth quarter and your offense coordinator is trying to call, Ezekiel Elliott snapping the ball. Obviously, it's not in the middle anymore, but it's one of those weird plays they call it at the end of a playoff loss. So yeah, I think that's your biggest question now is the offense going to be good? Because the defense just looks, oh my God, fantastic, that I feel very comfortable with the Super Bowl pick. I'm a little worried about Brandon Aubrey, their new kicker. That would be the other.
This is first extra point.
Leave it to Jerry Jones to draft the MLS #1 overall pick who's never played in the NFL before.
The one thing I'll say about the defense too, and this is not taking away from the Cowboys by any stretch of the imagination, but the Giants gave them anything they wanted. I mean, well,
let me ask you this though. So
the Giants marched down the field and then just block kick to the house.
I think we were all in on Brian Dable. I know I certainly was. And I said, he can fix anything, including Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones looked like he was having night terrors from his time with the special teams coach that buys pizza and beer. What's his name? Joe Judge.
Oh, yeah. And Jason Garrett.
So what happens?
On the same coaching staff.
I'll put it this way. How do you come back from this?
Well, I mean, I think that this can be too a week one situation where it's the Giants are absolute trash and the Cowboys are the best team in the league. And then, we'll get some automatic, some correction, some regression to the mean. I do think there's a case to be made that the Giants and their success in 1-score games last year, they were overshadowed by the Vikings, but the Giants were a lucky team that felt like they were being coached up really well and getting the most out of it. And that's why their win total was 6.5 or 7.5.
But I'll say really this about last year. They got rid of Kadarius Toney. They got rid of not Darren Waller. They got rid of Evan Ingram. This year, and they didn't make any changes. They brought in a lot of people this offseason, both through the draft and free agency. So I expected them to be better. So, Brinson, I'll ask you to rank your quarterbacks.
Wait, before we rank, I would like to throw out this stat that is on YouTube because Daniel Jones has out Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton.
Impossible.
Daniel Jones now 1-10 in prime time, which is the worst record among any NFL quarterback with at least 10 primetime starts.
Why did we have to suffer through 27 primetime starts with Andy Dalton? I don't understand that.
He played for an amazing team.
He played for a team in the playoffs 5 straight years and didn't win.
Yeah, amazing. He went 6-21.
You know what I heard, by the way? Andy Dalton pops pop the champagne like the 72 Miami Dolphins did when this record was broken.
Well, is that was a record's broken? It's gonna be hard for Daniel Jones to I don't know. Daniel Jones can win 5 primetime games, and all of a sudden it'll be way past.
No, he can't.
6-21 is pretty bad.
Rank Brinson the first week 1 performances: Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett, Joe Burrow. Just solely on week 1 performances. If you came from another planet and watched those 3 games, which quarterback would you draft first in your fantasy football?
Is Kenny Pickett's one?
Oh, I don't know. Dude, I
mean,
not know.
It wasn't Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones ran some, but that was just that game was over before it began. It wasn't even close. Jones finished 15-28 for 104 yards and 2 picks. Ran 13 times for 43 yards.
Well, I will say real quick that Wilson asked, "How do you fix this?" And I will say that you fix it by playing the Arizona Cardinals, and that's what the Giants do in week 2.
Yes.
So I think they'll be
Wait,
okay.
though, they were terrible.
I just think that it was funny though, because Chris Collinsworth was he's like, Mike, it's like the problem for the Cowboys is the Giants are really taking away what they do best on defense by virtue of running the ball and getting the ball out quickly. And then because the first score was a block, it was a block field goal. The Giants had first and goal, and we're going to score and go up and take a 7-0 lead.
And who scored that touchdown?
Chuba Purdy?
Nope.
Noah Igbenogany?
Yeah, Noah Igbenogany. Dude, they
imagine making that trade last week. Everybody's like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And then first game, he comes out and scores a touchdown in his first quarter on the field.
So some fun facts if you're a Cowboys fan. Largest shutout win in franchise history, which includes the postseason. Some sad facts if you're a Giants fan. I forgot about this. Second team, I can't believe, I don't know who the first is, probably the Bengals. Second team in NFL history to lose a playoff game by 30-plus points and then lose the following season opener by 30-plus points. That is a nut punch twice.
Probably the first ever to do it to division rivals in both of those games.
The 1990 Raiders lost the AFC Championship game 51-3, it turns out, to the Bills, and then lost their season.
Right, but the Giants lost a playoff game to the Eagles, then lost this game to the Cowboys.
Yeah. No,
you're getting bludgeoned.
I was just clarifying the Dallas 8-0 versus the Giants in primetime in week 1 games. 1-6 in his career against the Cowboys. Daniel Jones is. So again, 3 interceptions, and by the way, worth mentioning, sacked 7 times. That did not help his cause.
So,
and
my comp for the 2023 Giants and the 2022 Giants has always been the 2017 Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott's first year. They have Tyrod Taylor. Remember, they benched him for Nate Peterman against the Chargers. Disaster. They make the playoffs, and everyone was kind of like, that team is a fluke. But then they get Josh Allen. I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is Josh Allen. It's just like there was going to be some regression for the Giants here. And they just got a whole face full of it in week 1. And this could be a longer season for the Giants. But I think if the bigger problem is that Daniel Jones didn't look good, much less comfortable. And you need him to, if he plays well and they win 6 games, I think you're fine with it if you're a Giants fan.
I had this team making the playoffs. I'm not fine with it.
That's a you problem.
All right.
Yeah, I think the Giants might have overachieved last year, and that's actually going to hurt them this year.
Correct. Exactly.
Are higher.
The expectations were high.
My point was that they spent a lot of money in the offseason, brought in Darren Waller. They drafted 2 rookie cornerbacks who Trey Hawkins had a struggle at times, but so did everyone. But I think they're a better football team on paper. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
No. All right.
No one uses paper anymore, Wilson.
That's a great point. My bad. All right, moving on. I'm going to come back to number 7 on a rundown, go to number 8, just to tie it into what we're talking about here. And I'll let Brinson take the floor here, although Breech was getting some pushback on the old Twitter machine as well. Both of you guys, I believe, picked the Patriots to beat the Eagles. Yes. I was talking to producer Billy before. He thought it was going to be smooth sailing when it looked like it was going to be 50-0 after the first few series. Pick 6 from Mac Jones, Darius Slay moonwalking to the end zone. And then Mac realized that Matt Patricia wasn't calling plays. It was actually Bill O'Brien. They got their act together. Kendrick Bourne had several nice touchdown catches. Hunter Henry had a nice grab on 4th down. Juju Smith-Schuster looked like he was still playing for the Steelers when they were trying to get rid of him. Kayshon Boutte, had he gotten a second foot down, the rookie wide receiver at LSU, they would have had a real chance to win that game late. But Brinson, your impressions of Mac Jones, Bill O'Brien, and the Patriots?
Well, so with the Pats, I think obviously the Patriots didn't win the game and didn't even cover. They certainly could have. There were some mistakes there, on the 2-point conversion where they had a false a holding call, which is brutal. You can't do that on a 2-point conversion because then you got to you're 10 yards back.
They wanted to see Mac run around. That's what
it's ridiculous. I thought that the Eagles went 14 plays, 56 yards, and looked good. It was good scripted stuff. Jalen Hurts looked sharp. They get the field goal, and then the Patriots come back and they throw the pick six, but it wasn't like I would say it was like 50-50 on Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones for that pick six, because it was like
I think it was 99 on Mac, 1 on Kendrick.
Really? I mean, hit him in the hands. I mean, it wasn't a good throw.
He threw it behind him and threw it high.
Yeah, he threw it high for sure, but it popped up in the air.
Also, sorry, worth noting, the weather was it was raining there.
Yeah, the weather was the weather was bad. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like he threw like a slant, didn't see a safety coming in, and he just took it to the house. Mac also had a terrible tackle attempt there, and then Zeke Elliott fumbles, and immediately the Eagles score, and it's 16 to they missed the kick.
16 to nothing.
Yeah, because it's 16 to nothing. And you feel like this is going to be a bloodbath, and it's like the turnovers. This Belichick hates that so much. The Patriots defense tightened the screws for that rest of that game. I mean, if you take the pick six away, right? I mean, the Eagles scored 18 points, and it felt like Jake Elliott was banging down long field goals. He had a 56, a 48, and a 51 in the second half. You had A.J. Brown, who stepped up and like really dominated in certain spots when the Eagles needed to get some first downs. But I thought the Patriots defense really, really tightened the screws on the Eagles, which was impressive. And Mac Jones got his act together. You see it like 7-14 to start the game, 28-40 with 3 touchdowns. And I don't know that this is going to be a situation where we're like, oh, the Patriots are going to steamroll people. But I think the way that they responded after getting down 16-0, given like the expectations from this season, was really impressive. And I think the Patriots are going to be a very tough out every week.
Brinson, Bill O'Brien had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien. Look, here's what I'll say about, I'm going to go to the defense real quick too, because like Brinson, I picked the Patriots, and I actually thought the Patriots were the better team. I mean, you're talking about the pick six, obviously. But I
don't feel bad. I know that the pick was wrong. I don't feel bad about the pick. I think that the pick, the genesis behind the pick was correct.
Mac Jones threw for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Eagles had 250 yards of offense, and the Eagles got 2 touchdowns. It wasn't just the pick six. They also had a 26-yard drive after Zeke Elliott fumbled the ball on the very next possession. Correct. So they got a pick six plus a 26-yard touchdown drive, and otherwise, so their defense set up those 2 scores on, I don't want to say fluky plays, but
they're a little, like they could have it, but it's like that, you don't expect the Patriots to give those up. Like,
I came away very impressed with the Patriots defense for doing something that not many teams could do last year, and that was basically shutting down a Jalen Hurts offense. And then the Patriots offense looked good against an Eagles defense that had kind of been destroying people last year. I mean, we're talking about a Patriots offense that put up over 300 yards. They hit 400? I don't even remember. 382. So they almost hit 400.
You need to add Kendrick Bourne in your fantasy leagues. Like, he is involved in this Patriots offense, and Bill Belichick praised his rushing, his run blocking skills in the preseason. Like, this is a guy who's going to be heavily involved, I think.
I think, and Billy mentioned this before the podcast, the Eagles didn't play anyone in preseason, so this is basically their week 4 preseason game. So I'm not concerned about them. Jalen Hurts had that stupid fumble at the end of the game. He can't do that. But I think you guys agree that they're going to be fine?
Yeah, I think the Eagles, yeah.
Are they better than the Cowboys?
Don't know.
No, you have to answer. Are they better than the Cowboys?
I think the Cowboys will win the division.
They're playing tomorrow. What's the line and who are you taking?
Where are they playing?
They're playing in Foxborough.
Weird.
Neutral site.
Eagles -2.
Cowboys
favored?
No, I'm taking the Cowboys.
No, he's taking the Cowboys. So
I'm taking the Cowboys too, but I think the Eagles will be favored.
I'm taking the Eagles. You guys are crazy. You just said that Mike McCarthy and Dak didn't do anything.
Yeah. And
it's actually like really similar things. The Cowboys, Jalen Carter looks freaking awesome. Like Jordan Davis actually had some nice plays too. Like the Eagles, I really think I think the Eagles are fine. The Eagles are a good team. They've got players across the board. That roster is really deep. I'm just saying I agree with Breech. I think this says so much more about the Patriots, and taking away from the Eagles. Just like
that's right.
The Patriots might be a bit of a problem in the AFC.
Hey, listen, I've said it for a lot of years here. Mac Jones, slow burn. You got to wait. He'll catch up with you once you're not got Matt Patricia calling the friggin' plays. All right, let's go through these pretty quickly here at the end. Breech, I'll start with you, and Debo put this on the rundown. Are the Cardinals still tanking for Chase?
Or are the Commanders? Are the Commanders taking? Is that the problem? Because my God, so people will text us sometimes and ask us for betting advice, obviously, because we cover the NFL for a living. And the advice I gave out to someone was
hammer the Commanders.
No, it was bet as much money as you want on the Commanders money line because there's no way they're losing. And it was minus 300. It's obviously not great value, but you're assuming
you're sweating that one.
You're making your money back, right? So
did this person bet minus 300, like a ton of money?
I mean, yes. And the Commanders won, so it didn't matter. And I look like a hero. But that being said, I felt like this was more about Sam Howell making his first start. He got beat up, and I don't know if the Cardinals defense is that good, because I do feel like one of the biggest Commanders question marks going the season was their offensive line. I think Brandon Scherf got hurt at some point.
Yep, correct.
And so you're talking about Howell. He took 6 sacks. He never had a lot of time. He threw not a great interception. And he kind of kept
Brandon
the
Scherf
Cardinals.
was on the Jaguars, just FYI.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, didn't
but Brandon Scherf did get hurt. Go ahead.
Yes, I was right. I knew it. See, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got hurt. So that statement was 50% correct.
I wasn't trying to I didn't want to call you out, but I also didn't want to
No, you need to call me out for something.
I don't want people to be like, oh.
So I just think it was more of Howell playing his first game, struggling a little bit, and that kept the Cardinals in the game because the Cardinals offense was just as bad, possibly even worse than we all thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So there was no way the Cardinals were staying in this game unless their defense did something, and their defense did, to their credit.
So Brinson,
I thought Howell looked. What's that?
Your conspiracy theorist. So are Cardinals tanking or no?
Well, I think that the Cardinals are fully aware that they possess the Texans pick and their own pick, and that the odds are quite good for them to get a top pick in this draft. And that if they aren't good this year, they're fine with that. But I don't think that the players on the team and the coaching staff are actively tanking.
Okay.
That doesn't happen in the NFL because that
doesn't sound like you. What'd you change?
I think the front office and ownership is just doing everything they can to lose.
Oh, but so it's like Major League. It's literally Major League.
Yeah, well, the players they're playing for their financial future and yeah, and the coach, Jonathan Gannon's coaching so he didn't get fired. So I don't think those
just got hired.
What?
Jesus, they just hired him 2 weeks ago. How's he gonna get fired?
I mean, how many people they're paying like 5 coaches.
What's the difference between Steve Wilkes, Lovie Smith, Jonathan Gannon, and the other light-skinned fellow they ran out of Texas? I don't know.
Kingsbury?
No, the guy before Lovie Smith in Houston. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Bill O'Brien.
There was a guy in between there. The friend came over from the Ravens.
David Culley, he's black, dude.
David Culley. I said light-skinned fella.
Oh, sorry.
Jesus.
What? You're like, I don't. Okay, you know what?
Anyway, all right. So you don't think they're tanking? They're a bad football team. They have 2 first-round picks. They're going to be high first-round picks. Caleb Williams and his dad said they may not want to come out this year. And I think it has everything to do with the Cardinals. Kyler Murray got a name check when Caleb's dad was talking about it. All right. So I don't want to stay on this game. What I do want to do, I'm going to throw some overreaction / bold predictions at you.
Give me my flowers.
For what?
Picking the Rams to win the game.
Oh, we're not talking. Oh, the second. You want to talk the Rams real quick? Let's talk the Rams real quick. Yeah, let's talk the Rams because Breech also want to talk about Seattle. So, Brinson, you take the Rams, and Breech, you follow up with Seattle.
Well, I just think DK Metcalf. I thought the Rams were just a lot better than people expected.
30-13. That's a lot better than people expected.
A lot better. I think everybody really forgot who Aaron Donald is, and I think he wants to remind them. The one pockmark on his otherwise almost perfect resume, aside from the fact he wasn't first team All Pros rookie year, is that last year he missed some time and didn't make the Pro Bowl, wasn't an All Pro, and I think that bugs him. And he was a force of nature. Have you seen the Geno Smith clip where Geno goes, Aaron Donald, he goes, "Oh my God!"
That was Geno that said that. I heard it.
That's hilarious. Matthew Stafford, 24-38 for 334. Didn't have a touchdown, but didn't need to. He didn't have Cooper Kupp, and he had two receivers with 119 yards. Can you name who they were?
I'm looking, so I won't.
Tutu Atwell.
Yep.
And oh my God, dude's name starts with a P. It's his first game ever.
Yeah, Puka Nacua, BYU.
I actually couldn't remember his first name, so I was hoping Wilson would say it.
Yeah, day 3 guy. Good for him.
The run game was fine. Not the worst in the world, but the Seahawks got banged up. They lost their 2 starting tackles during this game.
Oh boy.
I just think that this is sort of my hypothesis with the Rams is like maybe it looks like the roster's terrible, but they've got some skill position guys. Matthew Stafford is a really good quarterback when he's healthy. He wasn't healthy last year.
He looked pretty good, yeah.
If the offensive line protects him, it doesn't like
and when he can relate to his teammates.
Yeah, and Cooper, but like
he
Cooper,
got on TikTok.
get Cooper Kupp back. Like I don't know. I don't think the Rams are going to win 10 games to go win the Super Bowl, but I think there's a Rams team that can win 8 or 9 games and like flirt with the playoffs.
Breech, what happened to my Seattle Seahawks?
I'll tell you what happened. It was your boy Eugene Wilson.
It.
Look, we all watched the Seahawks last season where they started hot and Geno kind of started to fade down the stretch. And so you had to decide as a pundit, are we going to see the Geno from the first half of the season in 2023, or are we going to see Geno from the second half of the season?
Hey, let me ask you something quickly. How many times in all our years working together have you used the word pundit out loud?
I think this was the second time in 11 years.
Okay, go ahead.
By the way, Bobby Wagner had 19 tackles in this game.
But all I was going to say is that, look, I thought the Seahawks, I think I had them at 7-10. I just thought that Geno is going to struggle this year. And, you know, going against Aaron Donald's a little different because he's arguably the best defense player in NFL history. But the Seahawks offense did not look good today, especially in the second half. Here is a fun game for you guys. Over, under. Did the Seahawks put up over or under 10 yards of offense in the second half?
I guess it's under. Is it under?
The over under.
I'll say exactly 10.
I'm gonna Breech is definitely a guy who would put it right on the number.
Look at that smile. I think it is exactly.
I'll say 10 as well. 10.
You're both wrong. It's over. They put up 12 yards. 12 yards of offense.
12 yards.
That's almost impossible to just not be able to. I mean, it was unbelievable, especially with the way they were moving the ball.
Apparently, it is possible, by the way.
But I mean, the way they were moving the ball in the first half, if you would have told anyone, if you would have tweeted out, I bet the Seahawks only put up 12 yards in the second half, Elon Musk would have revoked your Twitter account and they would have kicked you off and your days as a pundit would have been over.
Nice.
That's 3. By the way, the Rams 11-17 on third down, which is pretty stout.
Yeah, so I'll just say I would be a little worried if I'm a Seahawks fan.
All right, fair enough. A lot of people.
How would you rank the? Do you think the Seahawks? How would you rank? Obviously, the 49ers 1, the Cardinals 4. Would you re-rank the NFC West now, or is this? Or is that never?
Seattle win in the West, so yes, I would.
Oh.
San Francisco and Brock Purdy are clearly world beaters.
I'm just saying, like, is it an overreaction to say the Rams might be just better than the Seahawks this year?
No, not yet. Not based.
I would like to throw out. I have a bet going with our buddy Adam Beasley, Pro Football
Wild
Network.
Card.
No, the Rams just have to finish in second or first place, and I win the bet. If they finish third or fourth,
Beasley's nickname is Wild Card.
Oh yeah. So if they finish in third or fourth, Beasley wins the bet. If they finish in second or first, I win the bet.
All right. I hate it. We're gonna get out of here on a little something I like to call overreactions. Pretty original, right? I'm gonna ask you.
I thought it was gonna be Breech is asking Brinson's.
Oh yeah, but then I think EK wanted to do some overreactions to get us on the record for this.
Okay.
Breech, I'll ask you the first one, and then Brinson, you can follow up. Breech.
I'm glad this show is no shorter than it was in the past.
We're getting there. Trying to.
We're going to be under 90 minutes. We're good.
Yeah. Here we go. Breech. The Browns are really good.
That's an overreaction. Do I explain why or just say overreaction?
Yeah, you get 15 seconds. Go.
They played a bad Bengals team that has been bad in every week one that Joe Burrow's been there, and no one expected the Bengals to win. And we don't know if Deshaun Watson's any good because he didn't look good. So, yes, it's an overreaction.
Brinson, are the Bengals good? Are the Browns good? We know the Bengals aren't.
No, it's not an overreaction. I think the Browns are good.
How good?
That's the question. How good are the Browns? I don't think that the 24-3 win over the Bengals in week 1 definitively proves that they are an elite team.
God, you're saying a lot of words. Take a stance, man.
I said it's not an overreaction.
You just sit on the fence, Brinson.
They're a good team. I think they're a good team.
Is your address 246 Fence Avenue? Get off the fence.
That is actually my address. That's weird.
All right.
All right, game public.
Breech wins that round for
ironically enough, I don't have a fence in my yard.
All right, here we go.
I won that round.
Brinson, you're up. Breech, you follow. Jordan Love is the real deal.
Not an overreaction. Jordan Love is the real deal.
Oh.
I think he's got the skill set. I like his skill set coming out of college. And I think the Packers, by virtue of the Aaron Rodgers winning 2 MVPs after they drafted a quarterback in the first round, were patient with him. And they have the infrastructure around him, especially when Christian Watson comes back to help him develop into a legitimate top 15 quarterback.
Breech.
I do think that's absolutely possible. I'll say, since he did it against the Bears, it is a slight overreaction. I will wait to see what he does against a good team. Although the Packers, Falcons, Saints, Lions next couple weeks, he might not see a good team till week 4.
There you go. All right, 2 more. Here we go. Breech, you're up. Cowboys are the best team in the NFC.
Not an overreaction. That is the most correct statement that you have ever uttered on this podcast. The Cowboys are not just the best team in the NFC. They're the best team in the NFL. They're getting to the Super Bowl as long as Dak doesn't choke anything away and Mike McCarthy doesn't,
Brinson,
blow anything up. But I think we're good.
It's a massive overreaction. Massive overreaction.
What planet are we on where you're
the Cowboys
tempering...
had 265 yards of total offense? Like, they didn't have to do anything because the Giants were just peeing down their leg and handing the football every 3 seconds. It was like the live scoring system on CBSSports.com kept projecting me to lose my matchup because it was the Cowboys' defensive point total was going to go down, and it was just it kept going up. Like, they were at 30, and it was like, well, they're going to finish at like 15. Then they were at 35. Then they were at 40. Then they were at 41. Like, it just kept going up. I think that the Cowboys are going to be on a very even plane-ish with the Eagles. I'll defer to Philadelphia for now because I think we've seen more of it. And in San Francisco, to me, clearly the best team in the NFC behind the Rams.
All right. Last one. Wins over Wilson. Brinson, you're up first. Do you agree with my top 5 QB ranking just from Sunday's action?
Wait, did you say all quarterbacks or just Sunday's quarterback? Like
just Sunday's action.
How quarterbacks played on Sunday?
Yeah. So unfortunately, Jared Goff, he's always my number 1, but he's not on the list. All right. You tell me whether you like this or not, and Breech, you can follow. Number 1. No, sorry, number 5. Number 5, Jordan Love.
Okay.
Number 4, T-Law, Trevor Lawrence. Number 3, Justin Herbert. I thought he played well until the end.
How high are you going to have Mac Jones here?
Number 2, Brock Chuba Purdy. And number 1, Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh. I would move Trevor Lawrence up to number 2.
Ahead of Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I just think, Lawrence, I would buy into more Trevor Lawrence MVP
no,
stock.
We're just doing Sundays.
I'm just saying the way he played on Sunday,
okay.
He is the truth. So, I think 2 is 1.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you guys would agree with that. We'll see.
No, he threw 466 yards. And he played really well. Trevor 2. I would actually throw Matthew Stafford at number 3.
He didn't have any touchdowns. I was thinking about that. Jimmy Garoppolo, Justin Herbert did lose. Jimmy Garoppolo's in the mix. All right.
Yeah, and then Brock Purdy 4 and Jordan Love 5, and Mac Jones honorable mention.
Breech.
Wait, are we making our own list or are we re-ranking your list?
You can do whatever you want. I didn't know if you like my list or not. Mine's number 1.
Do what you want, and Wilson's going to grade you, and then you'll find out. And are we tied? So this is like for all the marbles, whatever you do right now.
So mine's Tua, Brock, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love. Those are my top 5. Do you like that, or do you want to mix it up?
I think that I like it. I'm just trying to think of all the performances.
Jimmy Garoppolo had a pretty good day. Matthew Stafford didn't throw any touchdowns, but he threw for over 300 yards.
Dak didn't actually take a snap.
Dak didn't do anything.
I think 2 at 1, Brock Purdy at 2.
You know who's like sneaky good that didn't get any credit for it?
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about this game at all. Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I had him on the rundown, and he was like, come on. Kirby Cousins is his nemesis. We'll get to Kirby at some point this season, I'm sure. All right, Breech, thank you for agreeing with me. That means you win. Easy.
Oh, crap. Why did I do that?
Sorry, Brinson.
No. I had a chance to just be like, that's a perfect ranking, Wilson. I win.
You have to Venmo me 87 cents.
I just did it. All right. Anything else, boys?
No. Unless you no, we did not cover Tampa Bay, Minnesota, and Tennessee, New Orleans. And those were like I will say that the 1:00 slate for the first time in the as long as I can remember.
We're trying, Breech. We're trying to get out of here.
You know what? Well, if Brinson's going to say one more thing, I'll say. You say something on Buccaneers, Vikings. I'll say one thing on Titans.
No, I was going to say that the 1:00 slate was a very boring slate for the first time. Like, I can't remember the last time the 1:00 slate on week 1 was like kind of a boring.
4:00 made up for it.
Oh, 4:00 was fantastic. Yeah. I will say on. Wait, you want Tampa Bay, Minnesota, or Tennessee, New Orleans?
I don't.
No, I'll take Tennessee Saints. You say one thing, and I'll say one thing.
Yeah, you have 15 seconds now.
You have Buccaneers, Vikings.
Baker Mayfield surprised with how well he played, and Kirk Cousins. There was some frustration I'm curious about to see how this Justin Jefferson thing plays out because he had 136 receiving yards in the first half, finished with 150, and like did some frustrated stuff after an interception by Kirk Cousins. So
I will say quickly before you go, Breach, our buddy Joe Musso's in the chat for reasons unknown, and he did the hashtag better than the Giants. He's a Bears fan. So that tells you all you need to know about the current state of the Bears. Breach, go.
Go Bears. The only person that might have been worse than Joe Burrow in week 1 is Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, he was terrible.
The Titans decided to bring him back instead of going after a different quarterback, and Tannehill repaid them by throwing 3 interceptions and having one of the worst games that I have ever seen him play. I think this is a 1-point loss, and he threw 3 picks, probably single-handedly cost them this win.
Titans should have won that game so easily.
That is going to be something to watch if it was just Tannehill's worst game of the season, or if this is going to be a problem all year.
And just to tag on to that too, like the Titans, their defense I'm curious to see if like what's the trend here with that defense? Is the Titans defense potentially good, or because if it's not, it wasn't during the preseason, like that's foreboding for the Saints offense.
And someone pointed out that Burrow had 82 yards. I very well know that, but he did not turn the ball over. Tannehill, 3 turnovers.
His quarterback rating was 28.8.
That's ugly.
Is Burrow's worse?
No.
Probably.
All right.
Well, let's find out for sure real quickly.
Sunday Night Super Friends will be live every Sunday night throughout the NFL season. If you'd like to support us on the show, give us a thumbs up on YouTube at NFL on CBS. And if you're watching live, I'm reading the promo. Join us in the chat now. Don't join us in the chat. We're leaving.
Do you have a teleprompter?
Don't worry about it.
You bought a teleprompter?
No, it's my iPad.
Okay.
San Francisco beat the Steelers. Thank you there, Breach. And, fun fact, we'll be back next Sunday night. 168 hours from now. So check back then. In the meantime, you can check us out on Pick Six Podcast. And Brinson will be back this week. Me and Breach will be back with Brinson on Tuesday. If you like the draft, you can watch me and Rick Spielman Tuesdays and Thursdays.
What's the name of that show?
With the first pick. All right. Thanks all who hung out with us. We'll see you guys in 168 hours approximately. See you later, boys.
See ya.